Welcome to our series, He Speaks, where we are aiming to amplify the voices of men who choose to speak about pain and healing, growth, and everything in between. Because there is strength in speaking and there is healing in being heard. My hope is that the short stories we share on He Speaks remind others that you are not alone, that you are not weak for struggling, and you're not broken for needing help. Just a heads up that we might be talking about some sensitive topics or challenging experiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. All right, so today we're joined by Richard Connell, the man with a plan. He is here to discuss what led him to think outside the box and develop a product add-on to something that's often recommended for men with Peyronie's disease. Now, for those of you who don't know what Peyronie's is, it's a condition where there's fibrous connective tissue that's laid down in the shaft of the penis, and this can lead to curvature of the penis, it can lead to pain, and obviously can affect a man's sexual function. We don't know exactly what causes Peyronie's disease. There's a lot of theories around it, and in some cases it's related to trauma, but not in all cases, and there seems to be a genetic link. We also don't know how many men will be affected by Peyronie's and why some men will and some men won't. But some research shows that about 9% of men will be affected. We know that in men who has had their prostates removed, these numbers go up to about 16%. Peyronie's disease was first described in the 1500s, and it was described in more detail in the 1700s. So we've known about it for a really long time, but we still don't know how to predict who's going to get it, how to prevent it, or how to treat it effectively in 100% of men. So that's why stories like yours, Richard, is so important to share. Will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey that led to designing the product that we're going to be talking about?
Yes, good morning, Jòh-Ann. My name is Richard Connell, and I invented the Comfort Grip. It was a journey that started probably about 3 years ago now, and I just suddenly just realized that something was going wrong. There was this bender forming, and there was also a feeling like a ribbon was tied around my penis, and it felt like it was being really restricted, and it just didn't feel right. And it was a sensation I'd never experienced before, and so that led me to do some research to find out what was going on. The internet being such a great tool it is, so I discovered this thing called Peyronie's, which I'd never heard of. I don't think anyone has heard of Peyronie's until they've actually got Peyronie's, which is a shame because there does need to be a lot more awareness for this type of thing. Um, so after some research, I found a clinic not too far away from where I live that specialised in Peyronie's, and so I went and had a meeting with them, and ended up with shockwave therapy, and they recommended the RestoreX device to work alongside the shockwave to use traction to try and counter bend what was going wrong. Um, and that's kind of where the story starts of where I've got to this point.
All right, so you actually came across information quite easily by the sounds of it and got to the right people. Do you think that men find most of their information online about these things because they're certainly not going to their normal doctors, their GPs, and speaking to them about it often because they're so embarrassed about speaking about those parts of their bodies?
I think that because Peyronie's is such a specific thing, I mean, I can only really talk about the UK, but if you go to your local GP in the UK, the chances are they don't know what it is. A friend of mine, I've since discovered he has Peyronie's too. He went to see his GP, and his GP said, I think you might have cancer in your penis,
Hmm.
and sent him for a scan. And it was only after he had a scan they said, "Well, we think you've got this thing called Peyronie." So, the GPs aren't aware of it either. And in the UK as well, the NHS um, doesn't cater for it at all. I think where the NHS is supposed to stand for National Health Service, I think it actually stands for no hope. Sorry. So the so you end up going to a private clinic and having to pay the money. Certainly here in the UK, I know in other parts of the world, insurance covers some amount of things to do with it, but in the UK, it definitely is a real struggle to get anywhere.
Yes, so I think it would be similar here in New Zealand where I live, where I think our GPs or a lot of our GPs will be on top of it, but I think there might be some that also just have no idea, but they certainly wouldn't know how to deal with it, and they would definitely want to refer these men on to someone else, usually to a urology colleague, supposedly if the referral is accepted under them is another question. So, in terms of those early days and having to deal with Peyronie's and figuring things out, how did you find that and what did you do?
I think Peyronie's comes in two guises. There's the physical aspect where your penis starts to bend and feel uncomfortable, and the second aspect is the mental side of it. It has a huge impact on your mental health. I can't understate this enough. The amount of people that I've spoke to recently that have emailed me and phoned me and told me their story. They've 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 really gone through the war, and I I felt the same myself. You go through some really dark days, and you can't explain it. It's a peculiar feeling, but you just know that everything's going wrong and you can't see an end to it. And there's so little success stories, if you like. It's, you're looking at surgery and all sorts of things, and it feels very debilitating. And there's even instances on Facebook groups and that where men have contemplated suicide. It's got that far, and this is something that really needs to be looked at in depth. I think the mental side of it.
Yes, that's extremely important because often as healthcare practitioners, we think about it in terms of the physical side of things and what we can do to get the physical side of things better. But actually, it goes so much deeper for that person you're seeing because the person is often in a relationship and it affects the relationship. And not knowing what it is and if it will get better and when it will get better can really have an extremely severe mental effect, which I think we as healthcare practitioners sometimes take for granted. And I agree with you that we can certainly do better in recognizing that it goes beyond the physical to that mental impact and really try and address that as part of the package.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you obviously had some shockwave you mentioned, and you started with the traction device, and you started with the Restorex, which is something that's often recommended by healthcare practitioners. Um, and so tell us about your journey with the traction device.
Um, I before I actually started the traction, I tried a vacuum pump,
Oh,
and that was horrendous. That made the bend even worse. So I thought this is a non-starter. So then I moved on to the Restorex device, and uh, I I followed the instructions and spent ages wrapping and bandaging and doing all these things, and then I put the clamp on, and that hurt, but it wasn't really getting a hold of the end of my penis at all. So I had to go to the next click, and then your eyes start bulging at this point, and you think, is this really going to help me? It's not a good place to be. And I tried it a couple of times, and I think on the second time it took me about 45 minutes to just get to the point where I was ready to start doing traction. And because of in my daily life, I do product design and manufacturing and that kind of thing. It got me thinking that there's got to be a better way than this. This isn't helping me at the moment. And it's not that the Restorix device isn't a good device. It is. It's brilliant and it's a fantastic invention and design. But with any designs, they evolve, and so my brain started going and ticking, and I started to think of different ways that I could actually hold the end of my penis so that I could actually stretch it, and that's where the comfort grip started to evolve over quite a long period of time.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, um, we'll do a demo later, but just to kind of talk about how the device works. The device, as it comes with a little clamp. So it's literally a piece that you clamp across the penis like that. And like you said, it doesn't always have the appropriate fittings because it can slip off. And then whatever it's hold or where it's holding the penis in place, you then need to apply traction to it because that's the whole idea of using the traction device. So you really want something that's actually going to be effective in creating, that hold onto the shaft of the penis so that you can actually then do the traction, which was something that obviously was not working in your experience and in the case of many other men that we come across as well. So, how did you go about designing the prototypes for the product as it is now, the comfort grip?
Well, as with any product design, you start with some ideas and sketches, and you start talking and bouncing ideas, and the first versions were nothing like what the final version is. It had screws coming in at different angles and some curved plates coming in, and it was quite complicated. And I was the
Sounds a
guinea
bit
pig
like
that
a
kept
medieval torture device.
very much so, yeah, yeah, very much so, like something out of the Victorian times. But designs evolve, and you start to think, well, this would be better, and that would be better, and I lost count of how many. It's dozens and dozens of prototypes and small changes, and every time I tried it, and I thought, no, this isn't working, and this needs to be like this or that, and eventually you evolve the design and the process until you end up with something that you're happy with, and that's basically where the comfort grip is at the moment.
Okay, that's sounds like you obviously out of your own need made this product and tested it, I'm assuming, on yourself for a while there and found something that you felt was working. But you obviously recognize that this could help other men as well because other men must have had the same struggles as you. So, how did you go about approaching other men in having a test group outside of yourself available?
Well, during the design process, I just used myself because I didn't want to put anyone else in that position, if it
Yeah.
kind of was going wrong or it was going to inflict more injury on them. So um, I did all that on myself. And then once I eventually got really happy with it, there's a couple of guys that I know who have Peyronies, and I said to them, just give this a try. What do you think? And they they both said like, wow, this is great. It's so much easier. You can just put it on and go. You're not messing around with tape and wrappings and paddings and all sorts of things. So after I got their feedback as well, I thought, okay, this is going somewhere. So then I started doing more search into how many people have Peyronies and what is available, and what can you do about it. And it turns out that it's vast. It's, the whole world is getting Peyronies, but nobody talks about it. It's all very uh, undercover, if you like, and it's only the people that have Peyronies talk about Peyronies. And so it prompted me to go ahead with all the investment in tooling and that kind of thing to create these injection molded parts that are the comfort grip. And and to actually set up a website to start selling it, because I thought that there's so many people out there that are buying Restorexes and they're trying to do traction and they're struggling with it for a number of reasons. Um, this can only help. So I launched the website, launched the product, um, and to be honest, it's been overwhelming, the amount of people that have contacted me and emailed me. And there's been some fantastic stories as well that people have sent me of how it's changed their lives. You know, they were desperate, again, going back to that mental side of it. You know, really, really struggling with it. A lovely couple in Virginia in America. The lady's husband was at his wit's end and he didn't know what to do. And he bought the comfort grip and they absolutely loved it. And he said it's changed their lives. So he can now stretch and his penis is going straighter. And, you know, it's the mental side of it for him has been absolutely superb. So, you know, it's a really great feeling that I've been able to help people in this situation.
It is amazing to get that positive feedback, and I'm sure you, with the feedback, have continued playing around with the design to get the best product available, so that you can actually put something out there to help men persevere with their treatment, because some people will give up really fast into that process if things don't feel comfortable, or it's a struggle, or it's just taking up so much time to do the actual treatment, that it's taking more time, like you said, putting on the tape and trying to find ways to make things work than it's actually worth to go through. So it is really great to have something really simple that works and that saves you time, essentially, so that you can get to the important part of the treatment, really, and then continue and persevere with the treatment. So I believe you have a comfort grip available. So would you mind demonstrating to us how it works?
Yeah, sure. So you've got your Restorex device, which comes with the clamp, which is just sitting on the front like that. There's a little clip underneath that you clip, and that comes straight off. So it's been well designed. Um, the comfort grip is here, and that just clips straight in like so, and that's it. You're ready to go. So you put your penis through the blue base ring, the same as you normally would, and goes into the silicone band, and then as you turn the bezel, the fingers come in and they grip around the shaft of your penis, just at the back of the glands, and it's very comfortable. The profile of the silicone just here is designed so that it helps to spread the load over the whole end of your penis, over the glands. Um, so it is very comfortable. Um, I've had so much great feedback from people that have now used it, that said, you know, it is a game changer. They can just put their penis in it, screw the bezel down, and away they go. And because in the first few minutes of traction, your penis gets thinner and thinner as it's getting elongated with the stretching, you need that infinite adjustment to be able to keep just tightening a little bit, because if you don't do that, it will slip out because your penis is getting thinner. So you've got to compensate all the time. But after a few minutes, the majority of the stretching has happened. It kind of just stabilizes and it just stays where it is. And the Restorex spring tension then just keeps the tension on to keep stretching.
And
But
it's got
after a few minutes,
soft silicone ends it basically grips from all sides, and it's soft silicone basically.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
it's an injection molded silicone, and
Okay.
so it's pretty soft and it just gets a nice grip on the skin.
Yep. And you can tighten it, for that, when that lengthening happens. So if you need it a little bit
Yeah,
extra, you can go.
yeah. As you turn this, the arms come in, and you can just turn it a little bit more, and it's got such minute adjustment that you can keep it going really comfortable.
Yep.
Um, the name of the game is to only have enough tension to stop it from slipping. You know, you don't want to like screw it right
Really.
down so that it's so it's really crushing into you kind of thing. And you just have enough to just you know, keep the grip going really.
Yep. And so, can you just show us how the rest of the traction works? Because obviously, if we're dealing with a angulated penis, the idea of the traction is to try and work on that angulation to improve the angulation, which is something that you can do with the way the traction device can actually set to bend more or less.
Yes. So here we have the Restore X, and it's in the home position. So we put our penis through there and into the comfort grip. So it's just, you can think, you can just see that the glands are just sitting through there. And then we turn the rotating bezel until it's got a nice hold. And then we can activate the spring, and that'll start the tension of doing straight traction. Um, Personally, and I think RestoreX recommend this as well, that you do straight traction for a while first, especially when you're new to the device. Um, just getting your penis used to being stretched, because it's not a natural thing for it to want to do. So um,
Do you find that the traction itself is painful?
no, not at all. No, it's I think it's when you first start doing it, it is a peculiar experience, but it's certainly not painful. Um, and the more and more you do it, the more you get used to it, and you actually be surprised how if you do it for 20 to 30 minutes every day, over time you can actually notice that it stretches further and further and further. So things are becoming more elastic inside your penis. It's getting more pliable. And I think this is where traction really works with Peyronie's, because it does make that plaque start to have to stretch. It can't do anything else. So by constantly stretching it and making it more elastic, that's how you end up getting rid of, or mainly getting rid of, your curve, because the plaque has to just know how to stretch.
Yes, exactly. And so once it's comfortable just stretching in that home position, you can add a little bit of angling to it.
Yeah, you've got the two buttons on the side, the blue buttons, and you can start to counter bend and start bending. Each click is about 30 degrees, so you can start counter bending. Um, Again, myself, I uh, do about 8 minutes of straight traction, and then I go back to the home position, and then I apply just one click, and then apply the tension. And so I time it for like 8 minute cycles, and I'll do that about three or four um, goes. So it's like half an hour. I don't tend to go right down to the 90 degrees, because for me, I feel it puts too much pressure on the outside and the inside of your shaft going around that bend. So I only tend to really just counter bend by a small amount, and it seems to do the trick. I know everyone's different. Some people like to bend at the full 90 degrees, which, you know, if it's still comfortable and it's working for them, then great, carry on doing that. But I think this is the key to a lot of this with the traction and any of the devices that you can buy and use, whether it's pumps or traction or whatever. You've got to listen to your body, and if it's comfortable and it feels right, then it probably is right. If it's hurting you, if it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't right. So, you know, do something else, or don't do it as extreme, or don't do it for so long. You know, it's about listening to your own body as well.
Yes, so as a physiotherapist, I'm forever preaching about listening to your body. And that's really a very valid and important point, is to get to know what is good for your body specifically, because it isn't a one size fits all approach. for every person out there. So for some people, they might need to start a little bit slower and build up into it over a really long period of time, where other men, like you say, will be fine going into that full angulation and having that stretch, and see no side effects or have no concerns around that. In terms of side effects and safety, um, do you get any sort of reports of any side effects using the comfort grip? Because with the clamp, we surely get people coming back and saying that it causes a bit of numbness around the penis. Usually it will dissipate quite fast once the pressure is relieved. But do you see the same thing with the comfort grip or other side effects potentially?
Um, you do, I think, if you go for half an hour or longer, you are kind of restricting the blood flow to the glands. So even with the comfort grip, you can get a little bit of coldness in
Yep.
the end of your penis, but certainly not anything like what you get with the clamp. It's nowhere near that sensation. But after a minute or so of not being in traction, everything's sort of fairly back to normal. Um, it's interesting that I get lots of emails off people who have bought the comfort grip or are thinking of buying the comfort grip, and they often ask, like, how long do I need to do this? How quickly can it work? Because everyone's trying to find that solution very quickly. And I say the same to all of them. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You've got to be prepared to put the work in if you want the results. So doing an hour of traction in one sitting, I don't think has any benefits. I think that you're far better to do 15 or 20 minutes twice a day than you are to do one long session. Um, I'm I don't know what the medical evidence is behind that. I don't even know if there is any medical evidence behind that, but I'm pretty sure, certainly through my own testing and trials, that doing little and often is much better than doing just one long stint. And if you're disciplined and you do it most days, um, over months, you will see a difference. But you've got to be disciplined. You've got to do that. You've got to put the work in, and you've got to be prepared to. It's a long haul. It's not some miracle cure that you're going to wake up the next day and that's it. It's all back to normal. It really does take a long time.
Yes, so, and I think you bring up a very valid point there. If you think about it in terms of other structures in the body, not necessarily only where there is the plague, which is, the problem with Peyronie's, but in other tissues where there might be a bit of scarring or stiffness, you're not going to stretch your shoulder, for example, and hold that stretch for an hour and then all of a sudden be fine the next day to move your shoulder through full range. If you've got a little bit of a stiff shoulder, you're going to move it often within a certain amount of range, and over time, you're going to benefit from that to actually get that range back. And the same with any other tissues in the body. Exactly like you're saying, little bits, but often is going to be more beneficial than thinking I'm going to just give it this long session once a day and then everything's going to be fine. We definitely, I usually, when I talk about that, I talk about how we see pets. If your cat, for example, is waking up from a nap, they'll give like a really good stretch before getting moving again. And that's to get your connective tissue in your body moving again. So little bits frequently is definitely more beneficial than just that one session, and making it as long as possible, and sometimes gritting your teeth because it might not be so comfortable if you do an hour of traction a day. It's probably better to do the shorter sessions as you've mentioned. All right, so traction is obviously one of the um, treatments of Peyronie's that you're very familiar with and that you found helpful. But I think it's just important just to mention some of the other options that are available for treatment or management. So on your screen, you'll see some recommendations of different management options. There's not a lot of robust evidence to support the use of all of them, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Things like oral medication is usually only recommended for pain management, not necessarily to change the actual structure in the penis itself. Injectables can be used to change the actual connective tissue that lays down in the penis, but research tells us that once it's calcified, it's not that effective anymore. So we probably have a very specific window that can be used effectively. Ultrasound and shockwave are sound waves with electrotherapy machines that's used often by physiotherapists. And again, the data there is a little bit inconclusive, but there is data to support the use of shockwave for pain management. Vacuum devices can be used, and these can be effective for some men, but in some cases it just makes no difference. And as you've mentioned, in your case, you actually felt that it made the bend a bit worse, which is definitely not something we want to hear when we're, thinking about management or treatment. Traction devices like the Restorix, but there's also a variety of other traction devices available, and these help with getting those tissues to stretch, be more mobile, and get used to movement to help try and counteract that bend. And then surgery can be offered in select cases, but obviously this needs to be done under expert guidance. You don't want things to go wrong with the surgery. If there's anything else you know about Richard that I might not have mentioned or might not have heard about, please share that with us.
Well, as you've mentioned there, Jòh-Ann, there's a huge amount of different things that people can try. And as you've said before, it's not a one size fits all. So somebody might find that a vacuum pump will work for them. Others don't. Some find tractional work, others don't, and injectables. And for me personally, the thought of going for an operation anywhere, never mind on my penis, just doesn't really cut it at all. That would have to be an absolute last resort for me, and I think for many men, I would try just about anything first before I went for an operation. So it is really a case of persevering. I think if you find you have Peyronie's, and like most um, diseases or illnesses, the sooner you can tackle them, the better, I think. But if you have left it a long time through, and a lot of men, it's shame and that mental side again, they bury it rather than dealing with it. So if you have left it a long time, that doesn't mean it's the end of it. You can persevere and you can, try and make it better. There are a whole raft of different medications and that you can try, and I think you just have to keep trying until you think you've found one that is actually kind of working for you, because it is just different in everyone. There's no one size fits all for this.
Yes. Well, thank you for designing a product that has really helped change the way that men can persevere with treatment and um, not just be in that place where it's okay to have something available, but to actually want something to be comfortable to use, because it's not good enough to just have something that's available, but it's actually not comfortable and not a viable option to continue with long term, for example, in this case, where it might be necessary to continue for a really long time. So, can you please tell us where people can get more information on the Comfort Grip?
Yes, apart from all the social media platforms, it's on YouTube and the various Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups. You can go direct to my website at www.comfortgrip.co.uk. There's lots of information on there on how to use it, and the videos are on there. and there's a shop there where you can purchase it, and it's through PayPal, and PayPal converts it into whatever currency you have. So it's dead simple, and around about between 5 and 10 days later, it'll arrive on your doorstep in a plain brown box. So there's no worries about what the neighbours might say, kind of thing. And so far, it's going very, very well. Sold probably to around 22, 23 different countries so far, um, all over the place. It's absolutely amazing. Really quite overwhelming.
It is amazing how small the world can be, especially with technology and all the advances that we have these days. Now, as a final question from my side, if you could change the conversation around men's health or healing in one way, what would it be?
I think that the biggest problem for men is we want to be men, and we want to be manly, and we want to do men's things in a man's way. And I think this is something that's hardwired in us somewhere, in the depths of history. And what we need to wake up to as men is that we're actually quite sensitive, and we need to talk to people instead of bottling things up and brushing it under the carpet. So, whether you have addictions or whether you have something like Peyronie's or anything else like that, you need to be able to open up and talk to people, because it's only by doing that you can tackle it properly, and get the help that you need. Bottling it up and sweeping it under the carpet isn't an option. Doing nothing isn't an option. I think men need to um, stop being quite so manly in some ways, and actually just say, I need to talk to someone about this. Talk to your partner, talk to friends, talk to the groups. There's groups all over the place on Facebook and Instagram, and there's help everywhere if you're prepared to go and look for it. And I think men need to do that more and sooner.
I think you're right on the money there, and that's part of what this series that I've named "He Speaks" is for, is um, telling men's stories and hopefully inspiring other men to then be able to tell their stories as well. So, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It is very brave to put yourself out there and share your personal experience, especially about something so deeply intimate and personal. And obviously, thank you for having the bright idea and persevering with finding a solution and not keeping it to yourself, to making it available to other men. It's really great to have a man leading that front to show other men that it can be done.
Okay. Thank you ever so much, Joe.
If you listened to this story on He Speaks today, thank you so much. This story is just one of many stories, and yours could be next. If you have a story that you would like to share, please reach out, because your story might just be what is necessary to help others heal.